Here we go.
Live from the Hollywood Foothills of North Carolina, welcome to episode number 50, our golden anniversary episode of the Confirmed Epic Podcast. I, of course, am your host, Thereelbradbell, and joining me today, my classic co-host, the man who's been with me since we took a bullet in the head for that very first episode, a man that I would never hit the detonate trigger on his implant, Suicide Squad implant. My good friend, my co-host, Mr. Jerry Reed, also known as
Barbecue 17. Hey everybody, glad to be here again, podcasting with Brad.
And we are live. We're in the same room. This is old school.
Yep, we're right here at my desk.
In Jerry's study here. This is kind of how it all started. We did probably the first 20 episodes of our podcasting career before we ever went YouTube high tech, and we got separated, moved away. So it's cool to be in the same room, especially this being the 50th episode. And it is a very special episode. And if you haven't figured it out, we're going to be reviewing David Ayer's Suicide Squad. Jerry and I are both big DC fans. Jerry even more so than me. So that's going to be a great, great topic for a 50th episode. Jerry, how have you been, man?
I've been doing all right, getting over a little bit of bronchitis. I was sick for like most of July, man, on vacation and everything, but doing well, still pumping out reviews at Action Figure Barbecue. Just got a little one, he's about to be 3, and we watched Ghostbusters this week. The
original?
We watched the original. I haven't got to see the new one yet.
That's crazy. I haven't either.
I really want to, but I just haven't been able to get the time. Honestly, we saw Suicide Squad. When we were on vacation with my wife's family, they watched the little one, and one day we went and saw The Purge election year.
I still hadn't seen it.
My wife and I really like the Purge series. I think it's a pretty good series. And then before that, last movie I saw was Civil War.
Before Suicide Squad, the last movie I saw was The Shallows, and that was late June. It was
Oh,
me
yeah.
and my wife and
Yeah,
Andrew.
the shark movie.
When I saw it, I actually really enjoyed that movie,
Yeah.
but it's crazy. I missed Jason Bourne. I missed Ghostbusters. I missed all these big
I
blockbusters.
haven't got to see Lights Out.
That's what I really
didn't get
wanna
to see The
that.
Conjuring 2.
Now, I did see Conjuring 2. That was the last movie I saw before Suicide Squad, and I actually probably liked it better than the original.
Okay.
High
praise.
I would have confirmed it epic, but maybe we can go back and watch it when it comes out on Blu-ray. Hopefully around Halloween.
Hopefully around Halloween we can do a few of these, because there was sounds like some decent horror movies this year that I really want to see and just haven't had a chance to. So.
And that'll give us, an opportunity to review these. Man, I really want to get back. I say I want to because we're both so busy with work, and you have a daughter, and it's just kind of hard to find the time to get to the movies, but I really want to try to do, even if it's smaller movies that we watch on Netflix, just try to get back to the basics of the Confirmed Epic Podcast.
I think once you finish, and I'm sure it's going to be in our checking out, but I just finished Stranger Things.
I have 6 episodes left.
When you finish Stranger Things, I think we need to do a podcast on that, because Andrew has watched it as well.
So maybe we can rope Stokes back into
Yeah, we need to watch that. That was an awesome show, and I would love to sit and talk about it for a while.
Well, I think that really kind of gets us into our usual opening segment, what we've been checking out.
Check checklist? Check. Double checking of checklist? Check.
So, Jerry, you alluded to it. You've been checking out Stranger Things, and we want to do an in-depth review of this, like you said, but just tell us your general impressions of it.
My gosh. When I watch Stranger Things, if you're not familiar with it, it's a Netflix original series. It's very much takes place in 1983. It's very much an homage to a lot of the 80s sci-fi horror movies, and I guess what you'd call like the kid adventures, like Stand By Me or The Goonies or Monster Squad or something. It's kind of that mixed with maybe a little bit of X-Files, a little bit of Twin Peaks in there, just a
little
bit
of E.T. It has that.
There are some very serious E.T. references as you get going. I know you're only 2 episodes in, so I don't want to say much about.
There's 8 episodes.
There's 8 episodes, and they've kind of said already that it would be stupid not to make a second season. This could be complete on its own. but there's still enough room left for an opening, which I like. It, I hope that's not too much. Just it could be complete on its own, but there's enough room for a second season to feel organic to the show. This is one of those things, and I guess I'm going to compare it to one of my favorite horror movies, Trick or Treat.
Which I have not seen that anthology.
You've not seen Trick or Treat?
Oh my
gosh, we need to watch Trick or Treat after this podcast. So, it's August. Halloween celebrations are already started.
Well, I got in trouble last year. I put my Halloween decorations up, at the end of August, and I promised Abby that I would wait to after September 11th this year. I promised. Okay.
Okay. Well, so Trick or Treat was one of those movies that when I first saw it, I loved it. It was fun. It was new. But at the same time, there's something that feels very nostalgic about it. It feels like a movie you feel like you've already seen, but in a good way. It's a mixture of things that you probably love. It has kind of this nostalgic quality about it. I felt that way about Stranger Things. That, I was always wondering what was going to happen. It wasn't, cliched or anything, but it has a very nostalgic quality to it. The kids are these 80s kids, lots of Star Wars references, lots of Dungeons and Dragons playing, and
that's how the show opens up.
They're playing D&D. And so I would just encourage anybody, if you like kind of classic, 80s horror, Poltergeist, a lot of the 80s sci-fi films and stuff, give this show a try. It is really fun. It's only 8 episodes. Has some really good performances.
They're about 55 minutes each, though. They're pretty solid.
The kids in this movie are some of the best.
It's not a movie, but it feels like a movie, though.
The kids in this show are some of the best child actors I've ever seen.
I like the kid with the lisp.
Oh, yeah.
They
feel like you're really watching just a real group of kids. They're really good.
It's hard for stuff like this to feel new and classic at the same time because, like you said, it feels like something you should have already watched, but at the same time, it feels like it's got pieces of your childhood in it. Whether you grew up in the 80s or early 90s, we kind of all grew up with those type of films and things.
Yeah, I was born in 83, so, but, some of this stuff is, things that from the mid-late 80s that I remember, and gosh, the poster even for this. If you haven't seen the poster for it...
It looks like Drew Struzan.
It looks exactly like a Drew Struzan poster. And, it has, the main characters on top with kind of these different facial expressions, and you've got 11 on there kind of doing a handout gesture. It kind of reminds me like a Jedi sort of gesture going on.
Yeah.
It's very mysterious. It definitely looks like something from, a Lucas or a Spielberg film. The poster,
Spielbergian.
As soon as the music is so John Carpenter at
really
times.
Is. That intro is so crazy because I was mentioning this. I'm lucky enough. I do have a 4K TV, but I don't have a 4K Blu-ray player.
Yeah.
I don't have a 4K direct TV box, but Netflix streams in 4K.
Okay.
So I'm sitting here watching this show, this classic 80s, so it comes on with that sprawling music that sounds like something from a John Carpenter flick.
Yeah.
And then just kind of almost a VHS kind of waggly intro. I don't really know how to describe it without you seeing it. And then it just goes to pristine 4K.
It sort of reminds me of the intro from Halloween 3.
There's something about this that reminds me of Halloween 3. I don't know what it is, and I didn't
watch it. The music definitely reminds me of Halloween 3. And I'm saying that in a good way. I like Halloween 3. A lot of people don't.
I watched it for the first time 2 Halloweens ago.
If you divorce Halloween 3 from the rest of the Halloween movies, it's a pretty cool movie. It's just when you have the expectation of the first 2 that you're like, okay, this is something really different. But some of the Stephen King stuff, like It and Stand By Me, this movie totally pays homage to those, but it feels fresh. It's exciting. I loved it.
Hopefully you can buy that poster soon. I'm sure there's bootlegs on eBay, but hopefully somebody will actually distribute and sell that poster. But yeah, that's Stranger Things on Netflix. Maybe that'll be one of our reviews soon. Speaking of upcoming reviews, I want to review that. I'm going to try to get the Ultimate Edition of Batman vs. Superman. I want us to review that.
Yeah. I'm excited to review that movie because our review of the regular one was like
3 hours.
Yeah, 3 hours.
But here's the thing: if we do review that, we're just reviewing that. No news, no checking out on that episode. What else have you been checking out, Jerry, besides Stranger Things?
Well, right now I'm sitting here refreshing my screen on HasbroToyShop.com because I'm trying to buy the Comic-Con exclusive Star Wars Black Obi-Wan Kenobi. But
you got the Kylo Ren pre-order.
No, I already bought him. He's right. He's right here.
Oh wow! Okay, there he is.
Yeah, there he
I didn't know
is.
you had him. Where'd you get? Toys R Us?
eBay.
I
couldn't wait to unmask Kylo Ren.
And it's awesome. Have you reviewed that on your website
Not yet. I just got him in the mail last night.
Order drape behind him.
Yeah, the box is pretty cool too. Pick that up.
Of course, we're not doing a video. We usually are.
Brad's holding it up to the computer.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I mean, it's pretty cool box. Got the burnt Vader helmet on it and stuff. I only picked up a couple Comic-Con exclusives this year. The other one was the Super 7, who does... They were the company. I think they've done some sculpting work for Funko. They put out a lot of Masters of the Universe stuff. They put out those vintage Aliens figures a couple years ago, or Alien figures a couple years ago. Anyways, they have the full Masters of the Universe license now. And they did a thing last year called... Do you remember Muscle?
Yeah. I'm not even really familiar with Super 7, to be honest.
Okay. So they're kind of a toy company that does a lot of vintage style toys and stuff. But I'm handing Brad some Super 7 merchandise that I have, or some pamphlets that I have that were sitting in with my thing. So anyways, Muscle was a toy line in the 1986 that Mattel put out that was based on a Japanese anime called Kinnikuman, which was a Japanese toy line. Brad, I have a giant Money in the Bank briefcase behind you. Go grab that.
Which you picked up at what, a pay-per-view?
No, it was
SmackDown?
It was at the one SmackDown before.
Which you went to with Andrew still.
Yeah, I can't remember which pay-per-view it was right before. It was the pay-per-view was after WrestleMania.
I have the
before
Money in the Bank briefcase. Of all the podcasts, we didn't do video for this one.
So these are what muscles are. I mean, I have a Money in the Bank briefcase full of muscle figures. You ever seen these before?
They look like something I would have got as a kid out of a little quarter machine.
But they came in little boxes.
I've seen them on your website.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you could buy big packs of them, and so I just got the big pack, and I'm getting a bigger box now.
It's kind of like the whole Army Man thing. It's like there's a crap ton of these things. Alright, more... Oh, okay, so it's got the Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, so Super 7 has started making Masters of the Universe figures that are kind of in this style. And I ordered one of the Comic-Con exclusives I ordered from them was a big set of, 24 of them?
That sounds about
yeah,
right.
They come in a cool box. And, I mean, once again, they're Master of the Universe characters done in kind of this little, Kinkishi style. They're like little rubber guys. So, really cool. I love them. They're fun. I'm still waiting on my Mezco 112 Collective Armored Batman.
Yeah, my family, I can't wait to see it because these two you have are really cool.
My family got it for me for my birthday and pre-ordered it, so I'm waiting to come. But
you're waiting to come. Okay.
I'm waiting for it to arrive.
You're really excited for that.
Shut up, Brad. I'm waiting for him to arrive in the mail at some point for my birthday. So
the shenanigans would ensue.
Shenanigans. Oh, hey, I got a great one. I got a great Stranger Things thing, real quick. Okay. So after Stranger Things, I was able to convince my wife to start watching season 3 of American Horror Story.
I've never watched American
I
Horror
love
Story.
the first 2 seasons. The show, I find the show to be very creepy. My wife has watched the first couple episodes of season 1, and then she's like, okay, I gotta stop. And I'm telling her about it, and she's like, it does sound pretty good. We watched the first 2 episodes of season 2, and she's like, no, too creepy. I finished it up, I'm telling her how it ended, and she's like, oh, that actually sounds really good. So after Stranger Things, I'm like, well, let's watch season 3. Do
you have it on Blu-ray or something?
We're watching this one on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. Okay.
It's called Coven. Has Kathy Bates. I mean, it has a lot of the same cast.
Is this the carnival theme one?
No, this is the one that's about a group of witches in New Orleans.
Which one's the carnival?
That's season 4.
Okay.
Called Freak Show. So, anyways, there's a really weird. I'm gonna try not spoil anything, but there's a guy who was a slave years and years ago that a witch put like a animal, like a bull's head on him and turned him into a minotaur, basically. And so he's been unleashed in the present day. And there's like it sounds crazy. Just go with it here for a second.
Sounds like a fetish.
Well, so there's one of the witch. He's coming after one of the witches, and one of the other girls is like, "Well, let me take care of this." So you think she's going to go after him, and she starts like trying to seduce this Minotaur guy. So I started making jokes because it reminded me of remember the Christopher Walken Saturday Night Live skit where he's a hospital administrator interviewing the doctor who's a centaur.
Yes, I do remember.
All right.
That.
So I was making jokes about that. So after the show, my wife's like looking on Facebook, and I'm walking around. I was eating something, and I was making a joke, and I said something about minotaurs or something. Made some joke to minotaurs, and my wife, just not even thinking, she's looking at her Facebook feed, and she goes, "Oh, my brother's into Stranger Things." She meant he was into watching Stranger Things, the show.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about, like, minotaurs, and she goes, "My brother's into Stranger Things." I'm like,
wow.
That was that just happened at the perfect time. I thought it was really funny. She didn't.
Yeah, if I had my soundboard in here, I would have hit it right there. But so you've been checking out the SDCC. I can't wait to see the Mezco 112.
Oh, man, I'm pumped for it.
Because you have the two here. You have the...
one of them is the previews exclusive from Mezco's 112 from The Dark Knight Returns. And then the other is the Comic-Con exclusive from last year, which is the battle-damaged Dark Knight Returns Batman versus the Mutant Leader.
I remember a time when... And I know you bought something. You bought one of those on eBay, right?
I bought both on eBay.
And I know you got a fair deal, but
I got a great deal.
I remember a time when you would not buy anything on eBay.
Oh, I've always bought things on eBay. I wouldn't pay markup prices.
Yeah, which you got good deals on.
Well, these weren't for sale any longer. I didn't consider them to be... I mean, they had long since sold out. Yeah. But I honestly paid less than retail price on one of those.
I couldn't believe
And the other one, I think I paid retail because... one of them somebody had opened, displayed, and put back in the box. The boxes are downstairs. They're pristine.
Which these are kind of like Hot Toys boxes, like they're collector.
Yeah, they're very nice.
Flip out, right?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, but I used to wear Hot Toys and Mondo posters. I still have all my Mondo posters on eBay, but all right, I digress. I hope Jerry can get this exclusive because it's driving me crazy.
I'm still refreshing my screen. I can't find him.
All right, let's talk about. I think we're going to talk about one thing I've been checking out a little bit longer, so I'll start with the shorter of the two.
Yeah.
My wife and I are in love with this new show on HBO called Vice Principals. It's a Jody Hill show. Danny McBride's the lead. Those of you that don't know Danny McBride, he's in a lot of the Seth Rogen movies. He was the star of Eastbound and Down, which took place in Shelby, North Carolina, oddly enough, which is basically where we're podcasting right now. And this takes place somewhere in South Carolina. I'm not sure where. I think they actually filmed it in Louisiana, but it's set in South Carolina. It's these two over-the-top vice principals that are upset about being passed over for a job. It starts out with Bill Murray is the head principal, and he's leaving because his wife has melanoma, severe melanoma, so he has to step down. And these two are just trying to screw each other out of the job. Turns out they don't get the job. They go with an outsider named Belinda Brown, a principal from Philadelphia. And this show is outrageous. As somebody who's in the education field, I'm a teacher, I'm not a principal, but it's basically everything that maybe you would think administrators or teachers are thinking in their head sometimes, but they can't actually do or say, but they just do it, and it is hilarious. It is insane. I mean, it's probably the only show that we watch. Well, there's not much we're watching weekly now because it's kind of the off season. But it's really the only show in a while that my wife and I sit there and watch together, and we're both laughing out loud. There's only been 4 episodes. There's like an episode where they go on a field trip that's just hilarious. Any bad thing that you would think could happen on a school field trip happens. There's like a Spirit Week episode. And I mean, Danny McBride is a great physical comedian. Something about the face gestures he makes, something about the way he moves his arms and body. He cannot be saying anything but look at the camera, and I just die laughing. And my wife's like, Brad, what's wrong? I was like, he's just so freaking funny. And he looks like a bad stereotype of a vice principal. Let's just say that. But I highly recommend it. Jerry, you watched Eastbound and Down at all?
No, I haven't.
Well, Eastbound and Down
I want to.
is like batshit. Like, that's the only way I can say it. Like, it's outrageous. Jerry's looking at a poster right now, and the other guy
who's pretty funny,
who's on there with him is, I can't remember the actor's name. Maybe Jerry can look it
Walton
up.
Goggins?
Yeah. Okay, he was he was the big bad in Justified. He was the main antagonist for Raylan Givens, and he played I think O. Crowder. I think that's who he played, or one of the Crowder, Lloyd Crowder. Maybe that was it on Justified. So I've seen him in this serious role, and here he's this kind of, he's not gay, but he's very feminine in how he carries himself, a very sexual type person, and kind of button heads with this redneck guy. And not overtly redneck, but southern, and it's just...
And he's the vice principal
they're both,
discipline.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's
who Danny McBride is,
okay.
and the other one's like over curriculum. And they're just butting heads the whole time. And I mean, some of this, it made me feel awful for laughing at some of the stuff. I mean, it's a dark comedy.
It's good comedy.
It's not as outrageous as Eastbound and Down. Like, Eastbound and Down's toned up to like a 10 the whole time. This is like about toned up to a 7 the whole time. But when they tone it up, it's like goes to a 12. Like, it's crazy, but I highly recommend it. They're 4 in. There's going to be 10 episodes, so I love it. And I think anytime you're watching something that kind of reflects your work environment, you gravitate toward it. So I enjoy it. So check that out, Jerry.
All right.
Okay, so I can't believe you hadn't seen this. I'm surprised. But we've both been busy. You've been sick. Batman the Killing Joke. They released it in the theaters, Fathom Events. I didn't get to go.
No, I didn't get to go either.
Evan tried to get me to go, but I couldn't because I had like an AP workshop that week. I was so busy. I was just too tired to get out and go. But I actually bought it on demand. Paid like $6 to rent it. So I finally sat down and watched The Killing Joke. Now, Jerry, this is like a quintessential story in the comic book world that Alan Moore wrote with art by Brian Bolland. Basically, the story that wasn't supposed to be canon that became canon of how Barbara Gordon went from being Batgirl to being Oracle. And what they did here was very interesting because Brian Azzarello wrote like a little opening story to set things up. And then it transitioned into the traditional Killing Joke story that we know. And man, this thing did not translate well to screen. Barbara Gordon felt like an object, not once but twice. She slept with Bruce, and then Bruce proceeded not to call her back. And then we all know what happened with the Joker, and it's kind of always been an implied thing that there was sexual abuse or a rape.
Yeah.
It's not implied here. He starts unbuttoning her, and it cuts away. So it happened.
Yeah.
We're led to believe it happens. And, hey, you got Kevin Conroy. He's Batman. You got Mark Hamill as Joker. He's Joker. I mean, it's great. The animation, people complained about it. This thing's getting a lot of hate. I actually enjoyed the animation style. It captures that sense of, hey, you're one bad day away from becoming me. That famous line that the Joker tells Batman. Like, it captures that tone, and you get that feel that, okay, this is one time where the Joker has finally pushed Bruce to the limits, and it's taken all he can not to kill the Joker. But that being said, you can get all that reading the comic book. Now, what this has stirred up is a conversation about, is the Killing Joke even relevant anymore? Or is it perverse, sick, and twisted? And this kind of will bring us into a conversation later on about Suicide Squad. People were upset with the Harley-Joker relationship. We'll talk about that later in the podcast. But saying this is just an outdated piece of material, it objectifies Barbara Gordon. How do you feel about these assertions? I mean, the story is the story. Whether you like it or not, this is an adaptation of that story. So I don't know how you can judge this animated film based on whether or not you like this story or not. I mean, just how do you think The Killing Joke is? When's the last time you read it? I haven't read it in about 4 years.
Yeah, I would say it's been 3 or 4 years since I've read The Killing Joke as well.
Do you think it holds up?
I think The Killing Joke is still a really good story in terms of it's a story. I mean, if you look at the characters in the story of who's really involved, it's a Batman Joker Gordon story. Barbara is absolutely, I mean, in terms of this, she is a plot device, like, you know, I mean, she's a victim. She's a Joker victim like anything else. You know, like anybody else who would be a background character in a Batman story here. And why that's way harder is to, I think for a lot of people to take, is that, you know, Barbara is such typically a strong character and a beloved character. And so it's really, you know, a lot of people are very unhappy realizing that this story existed and that she's basically just a victim in the story.
But the story kind of cements the Joker as the ultimate twisted psychopath without remorse. I mean, I know he is that, always, but this cements it. To me, this is the Joker at his
and
worst.
There's a backstory for the Joker here, which is something we really don't have anywhere else.
And that's a big part of this. They play that up heavy in the animated feature.
I would argue that if you look at The Killing Joke, which I know there's the whole thing about it was not supposed to be canon, but then DC was like, no, we absolutely consider it to be canon, and the comments about one of the editors saying cripple the bitch, you know, in regards, I can't remember who supposedly said that. Alan Moore claims somebody said that. Alan Moore hates the story now, apparently.
Alan Moore hates everything.
Alan Moore hates everything that he's involved with that he no longer, you know, that he doesn't control anymore. And I mean, he's got legit complaints about those things. If you look at the story, I think, in a longer context of where it took Barbara, you know, I guess maybe it's part of her development, but in this story alone, I mean, she's a plot device like any other victim, you know, would be in a comic book story, except we know her name. You know, we know her character and her backstory, and to see her, you know, just crippled and
50% on Rotten Tomatoes, which was higher than Suicide Squad.
Yeah, potentially assaulted, sexually assaulted is definitely kind of rough, with her not having a lot of context in the story to it.
There was something eerie about this because you take the animated series, you take Mask of the Phantasm, you take all the Arkham games where we had Hamill, Joker, and Conroy Batman. They've never been in a story this dark. And there was something off-putting and eerie about seeing these voices from your childhood that you know and love as these iconic characters in these twisted situations. But to me, that was the purpose. They were trying to get you to feel that unsettling vibe. And it accomplished that. If you like The Killing Joke, I think you'll like this animated feature. If you don't like The Killing Joke, you're going to hate it. It's like, you know, if you like Lord of the Rings, the book, you'll probably like the movie. I mean, don't go in to hate watch something. We're in a very, I'm not trying to sound like Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump, but we are in a very PC era. To some, that you know, is a good thing. To some extent, it is. We need political correctness. Things need to have their limits. But when you're telling stories like this about a psychopath, murdering clown who's unhinged and has no remorse, no regard for human life, the definition of a sociopath and a psycho, then I don't know how you can be like, he's not being PC enough. He's a cold-blooded killer. The things he does are meant to make you feel unsettled. Yeah. And we have that again with the Harley Joker stuff and Suicide Squad. We'll talk about that later. So I just don't get that lens of how can you, you know, PC something, make something PC that's so treacherous.
I think the whole issue is that people looking at it and seeing once again that all this stuff happens to Barbara, and yet she doesn't have a lot of agency in this comic. You know, there's I mean, even this movie, knowing that they've added some scenes with her in at the beginning, that still a lot of people don't seem to be very happy with. I haven't seen it, so I can't give a lot of weigh-in there.
You should watch it.
Yeah, I plan on watching it. I haven't got around to it yet. I mean, I think that's a lot of people's concerns, is that, you know, she becomes a bit of a plot device, you know, really for the Joker to get at Gordon without a lot of explanation on her part. Or, I mean, obviously, I think the real problem is, and this is interesting, is a lot of people now are looking back and saying that they are really unhappy that Barbara Gordon ever became Oracle.
That was such a big part of her mythos.
And then, yes, but then remember when the New 52 was going to bring Barbara Gordon back as Batgirl and have her recover,
people were irate.
People were mad that they were taking away a character who had overcome such tragedy and a disability. So I just feel like it's one of those things, if you do anything negative to this character, people are not going to be happy with it.
I mean, it's your favorite character, so you're speaking from, well, besides Batman, probably, but you're speaking from the heart on this. What would be interesting if we could do, I don't know if we'll have the time, again, it's hard for us to get together, but, and do podcasts, if we could read the book, and then watch the movie.
Yeah.
And then kind of do like a dual review of the two. That would be something that would be fascinating, I think.
For me, as a Batman fan, I've always known, and Batgirl fan, I've always known the Killing Joke existed. I've always known Barbara recovered. And I've always had the animated series and other things where Batgirl wasn't, you know, treated like this or subjected to this. So I guess I didn't see it as, I mean, it's a tragedy, don't get me wrong, but I didn't see it as a tragedy for the character, because I knew she overcame and became something new. I mean, it was still a horrific act, but you're kind of seeing, you know, her rise from it. But I guess the problem, and a lot of people would say, is that you have, compare it to something like Nightfall, where Batman is defeated,
back and John Paul Valley comes in.
And but that storyline focuses so much on Batman coming back.
True.
And Barbara doesn't get that kind of
treatment
here.
I see your point there. That's a valid argument.
She doesn't get a chance. I mean, except for a long, long, long term. If you're looking at it, you could argue, I mean, she works with what she has as Oracle and becomes, you know, the top information broker and a vital asset to...
For years of comics pre-52.
But some of her overcoming the Joker really doesn't even start to happen until the New 52, and you can argue her and the Joker never really get their day. Batman still ends up being the one who sort of overcomes the Joker.
There's a line in this film, Jerry, where Batman says, "You're not my equal." And people took that the wrong way, and that she's a woman, she can't be equal to Batman. And I think people take that out of context. Nobody's Batman's equal. Even in a way, Superman's not Batman's equal in the way that Batman can think and approach and solve a problem. That has nothing to do with him being a man. That's just the character that we've known and loved for decades.
Yeah. But you can see where that line comes off really...
It
can come off really strangely. I think the point of this story is, in a lot of other superhero stories, a character gets their retribution. They get their chance to, you know, to kind of rise up. Batgirl doesn't get that chance.
That story is still out there to be told. Somebody can tell it. Maybe in this.
And she's not like. It kind of reminds me of Bucky a little bit, because Bucky's one of those characters that was killed. I mean, Bucky's was not as horrific as Barbara's is. I mean, I think when you throw...
But Barbara wasn't killed.
No. But when you... I mean, when you throw sexual assault in there, it takes in a whole... And rape, it takes in a whole different level of... I mean, and it's hard to say that comparing... You can have characters killed and, you know, people don't always bat an eye. When you add sexual assault and rape in there, it does add a different dimension to it just because of the... I mean, you know, the way we view that is kind of the ultimate taking of a person's, their agency and their will. But I think that the thing now is Barbara doesn't get that, and maybe the way to kind of, I don't know, move forward with the Killing Joke is someone needs to write that story.
What's interesting
in that universe.
This reminds me of a year and a half ago. We had a controversy. They were doing Joker's covers for Death of the Family, I believe, or maybe it was Batman Endgame. I can't remember. They were doing the different covers, and one, was famously basically shunned.
Yeah,
where you basically had Joker holding Batgirl, and Batgirl was painted up with a smile on her face. They had to pull the cover. There was so much outcry. It was Raphael Albuquerque who was the artist. And then they ended up doing a cover of basically her having agency. The script was flipped, and she's beating the crap out of the Joker. I got the cover. Tell me that story.
Yeah.
That's what we need. I think we're both in agreement there.
Here's one of the things that I think about that's interesting about Batgirl. In regards to the Batman family, if you look at every member of the Bat family, there's typically a tragedy that has happened in their life that defines them. Let's be honest. Every Batman movie, every Batman comic is going to reference the death of Thomas and Martha Wayne and how Batman is still haunted by that. That is his tragedy. And it shapes everything. Dick Grayson, his whole reason for getting into this is losing his parents to Boss Zuko. Yeah, or Two-Face if you're talking about Batman Forever.
Yeah, exactly.
But Boss Zuko. If you're talking, even some of the other characters, Jason Todd, he has personal tragedy that has kind of brought him there.
And that character's defined by his death.
Yeah, he's defined by his death and resurrection at this point as Red Hood. Batwoman has tons of personal tragedy in her past.
What about Tim Drake? I'm trying to remember. Did he really have any tragedy? He was an orphan.
Tim Drake lost a mother.
Okay.
Lost his mother. Pretty sure it's correct. Barbara is unique to the Bat family, to the core Bat family at least, in that she chooses to become a crime fighter based on the presence of role models in her life and a strong personal sense of justice. There's not a tragedy necessarily, and some of the newer things have tried to go back and inject something in the past. The issues with her mother and her, brother and stuff in the New 52.
Black Mirror
but
story.
Typically Barbara becomes a crime fighter because she's seen the example of other people, of Batman, of her father, and she's inspired by that. So the Killing Joke sort of gives her, I guess, this personal tragedy, and so you can see why some writers have hung on to that in the same way as Batman losing his parents.
The Jason Todd.
Being beaten to death by the Joker with a crowbar. But anytime we see a crowbar, with Jason Todd, that imagery is always there.
Even in Batman vs. Superman, you had the suit, the spray paint, jokes on the and the wrench.
Maybe it's just that, it's Barbara Gordon's tragedy, and it's a little different than other people's, but she sort of has this as well, except the Killing Joke, she's kind of a plot device, but Jason Todd kind of is too in A Death in the Family. I'm not sure we've seen the story where Barbara Gordon has got her retribution yet.
And maybe that's what we're waiting on. So let's go ahead and move on from what we've been checking out into a few epic news items of the week. We'll keep this kind of brief, Jerry, because not much news coming out in the wake of San Diego Comic-Con. Everybody's already kind of spilled the big news as far as the big two publishers, a lot of the toy companies, a lot of the studios, and whatnot. But there are a few tidbits that have come out here recently, so let's talk about these real quick. This was just announced right before we went on the air. Marvel's doing another Ghost Rider series, solo. It's going to have Robbie Reyes. And Robbie Reyes, I think, is famous for driving the car over the motorcycle, but it looked like in these photos he was going to have the motorcycle. No coincidence, Robbie Reyes is going to be, I believe it's on season 4 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's announced
right, yes.
At San Diego Comic-Con, so no coincidence, probably he's going to get his own ongoing series. Felipe Smith, Danilo Beirut. Felipe Smith's on the story, and Beirut is on the pencils. Ghost Rider, I don't know, to me, never the most interesting character. I read some of Mark Teixeira's old stuff, and I met him at a convention. I've heard he can be kind of a pain, but he's always been nice to me. I met him twice, and I'll never forget, there was this kid who had like 50 issues he wanted signed in front of me. He said he would only sign one, and the kid said, I'll pay you such and such to sign them all. So he paid him like $10, and he signed all these issues. And then I got up there. Of course, I had to wait. I was just ready to get out of there at that point. He actually sketched a little Ghost Rider.
Oh, cool.
In some dead space on that cover, so that was cool. I mean, I know you're not buying single issues. You're not the biggest Marvel guy. Any interest in Ghost Rider on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or as a character as a whole?
It actually has made me interested in watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Because, I mean, Ghost Rider is a character I recognize. I never saw the second movie, but
I liked the first one.
I liked the first movie. It was not bad.
The second one's crazy.
I haven't seen it. I know he pees fire or something in it. Ghost Rider.
The second one reminds me of Punisher Warzone.
Oh my gosh.
It's crazy.
Well, I love Punisher Warzone.
Well, if you like Punisher Warzone, you'll like that.
Okay.
And you may need to watch it.
We finished Daredevil not long ago, season 2.
Okay.
That was incredible.
Yeah, I finished it too. We got Luke Cage coming up.
Luke Cage, I saw that trailer. Looks pretty good.
So that's exciting. So
Iron Fist.
Oh, Iron Fist. Yeah, all those look good. Those were announced at San Diego Comic-Con. So yeah, I don't think I'll be putting this on my pull list. I'm kind of like Jerry. It's just so much easier these days just to grab trades. Yeah, it just is. I mean, individual issues are awesome, but as far as collectability, I'm not a collector of comics. I'm more getting comics for the story. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. I have certain issues that mean a lot to me.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, my wife got me the very first appearance of Spider-Gwen for my birthday. I mean, that's an issue I like. I have the whole Long Halloween signed by Tim Sale. But other than that, I mean, take it or leave it. I just love the stories. So, Jerry, horror. We're both big horror fans, and it's rumored that now this movie, this new Friday the 13th movie, was supposed to come out, this Jason Voorhees flick, in January. There's no way. It's not coming out in January. The studios pretty much said that. So the rumor is it's getting pushed back to October 13th, 2017.
It's a great date for that.
October is Halloween time. It's Friday the 13th. And they're going to get they're courting, this is not confirmed, the Crazies director, Breck Eisner. Did you see the Crazies?
I did. Both of them.
It's a good movie. I hadn't seen the second one.
The original Crazies.
Okay, yeah.
The George Romero
remake.
Crazies.
I've never seen the original.
It's good. Very different movies. Very different.
I actually enjoyed that.
It wasn't bad. Timothy Olyphant on it.
Yeah, Timothy Olyphant, not Elephant.
Oliphant. Oliphants are what they have in Lord of the Rings.
Or as I will sometimes say, Timothy Elephant.
Timothy Elephant.
the guy from Justified. Raylan Givens. Yeah, I actually enjoyed that movie, so hey, I want to see another Friday the 13th movie. The interesting thing is, I actually came out when I was in college. I think it was 2009. I actually enjoyed that remake. I didn't think it was that bad.
I haven't seen the remake.
Oh, you should watch it. It's pretty good. Obviously not good enough to warrant a sequel in their eyes, but
yeah. Well, I liked the new Nightmare on Elm Street. I thought that was pretty good.
The one with
Jackie Earle Haley. I enjoyed that.
I hated that movie.
Really?
But that's a discussion for a different day.
No, I liked it.
I didn't like that. Me and Andrew and Josh went and saw that, and Josh thought it was a masterpiece.
I was supposed to go with y'all, and I got called into work.
Yeah, I remember.
It was after a steak supper one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It came out in like April. It was like right before summer. And I was excited because Freddy, besides probably Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street's my favorite horror franchise. Scream TV show, by the way, second season, still awesome.
I haven't seen it.
I got my wife into it. Okay. It's awesome. Quick news nugget. New Rogue One trailer Thursday night during the Olympics. No doubt it'll probably be online within the hour.
Yeah.
Maybe the exact same time.
I'll be looking out for it.
Are you still as excited for this film?
Oh my gosh, I am so pumped for this movie.
Really?
I am insanely pumped for Rogue One.
You were it's your number one of the year, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm excited for him. Really excited. I just want to see what happens with the Skywalker saga so bad. I can't help but think in the back of my head, I wish this was that. Especially since they pushed that back to Christmas instead of May.
Christmas is a great time. I like this idea. I initially was kind of like, oh no, Star Wars has always been, that
Memorial Day.
Yeah, that May weekend. But I like the holiday, the Christmas release.
It fits
for the
Star Wars.
It works well, and every Christmas I always like get in the mood to watch all the Star Wars movies anyway, and so I've read. I've been keeping up with. I keep up with every Star Wars comic, every Star Wars book. I just finished the second Aftermath book.
How was that? Was it better than the first?
It is good.
Okay.
The first one was just very.
Is it written by the same guy?
Chuck Wendick.
Okay.
The second one is phenomenal. It's what you want. I think it's what I wanted at this point. It still has this core group of characters from the first one who've started to grow, but now, like, one of the main characters in the book, you're like, oh my gosh, this kid that's in the original book named Temmin Wexley, that's Snap Wexley from The Force Awakens. Greg Grunberg's character, who's the pilot.
Trying to remember.
He's the pilot with the big beard.
Okay,
one of Poe's friends. There's like Force Awakens character. Leia's pregnant with, assumably, Ben in this. You find out that Han and Leia are married. It's about the mission to free Kashyyyk from Imperial control. Yes. Lots of great Han.
Do you have to read the first Aftermath to enjoy this one?
I honestly think you wouldn't have to, but there definitely are a couple characters you'd be confused about. Okay. This one is good. The first one, you sort of need to at least introduce the characters. It's not bad on its own, but for being the book that was in The Road to the Force Awakens, you're kind of wondering, like, okay, how is this connecting anything to the next movie? This one is just a good Star Wars story. I enjoyed it.
I'm almost done with Darth Plagueis. I've been reading this book
since before The Force Awakens came out. Yeah,
for about a year.
Oh, it's been longer than that.
Well, I read like about 90 pages, quit for about 6 months, read about 90 more pages. That's how I go with my.
Sorry, I just read Anakin and Obi-Wan as well.
How was that?
It was good. First trade. I liked it. So
I read that story. I didn't read the last issue.
Takes place before Attack of the Clones, so it's a younger Anakin.
The art in that's crazy.
Yeah, it's a good book. I'm enjoying it so far. I'm enjoying the dynamic of Anakin and Obi-Wan.
All right, let's do a little quick collecting thing. Walgreens is getting an exclusive Constable Rick Grimes Walking Dead figure. Just your thoughts on Walgreens exclusives.
Walgreens has been one of the best places for exclusives in the past 2 years or so. All of their exclusive Marvel Legends figures have been pretty nice and pretty easy to find for the most part.
They had the white Boba Fett, too, didn't they?
They had the white Boba Fett. He was tough to find. The Emperor's Wrath Darth Vader. He was the first one they had as exclusive, I think. Emperor's Wrath Darth Vader, pretty easy to find. Good figure. Better than the regular Darth Vader. That was released. They've done a different Ant-Man, the black costume Ant-Man, Punisher, yellow suit Daredevil with an unmasked Matt Murdock head, Namor. Punisher's coming out. Namor is out right now. The Punisher looks awesome.
I know you don't collect this line because they're that odd size, like the 5-inch.
I don't collect them,
but
but now they're jumping them up to 7 inches,
which is still odd.
Yeah, they're not going to be in scale with everything that's come out, but they're going to be more like the older McFarlane figures, less articulation,
better sculpting. I guess more noticeable.
They're a good looking line, but they're such a weird scale.
Yeah. All right, that's going to wrap it up for Epic News. So let's go ahead and get into our featured review. One of our most anticipated films of the summer of the year. Summer. One of Jerry's most anticipated films ever. And that is part of the DC Entertainment Universe.
I'm kind of joking about that, but I was really looking forward to this.
Yeah, I was too. It's David Ayer's Suicide Squad.
Gentlemen, ladies, what if Superman had decided to fly down, rip off the roof of the White House, grab the president right out of the Oval Office? Who would have stopped him?
I want to build a team of some very bad people who I think can do some good.
Y'all jokers must be crazy.
What?
This is the deal. You disobey me, you die. Try to escape, you die.
You got a boyfriend?
You irritate or vex me,
I'm known to be quite vexing. I'm just forewarning you.
you die.
If they get caught, we throw them under the bus.
What a ride!
Alright, so joining us for this review, we have Jerry's lovely wife, Kristen.
Hello.
It's awesome to have Kristen back on this podcast. She's been doing more podcasting in the past 2 months than she has the past 2 years. Because she was on that Pop Culture Potluck podcast.
Oh, she was? Yeah.
So, and
she was on one of the DCEU podcasts when we did Man of Steel.
oh yeah, so that's
So-
fitting. We're speaking of the DCEU. That's where I want to start. Their movie universe, DC Entertainment Universe. We've kind of talked about this on the podcast before. How do you feel about Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman?
I love Man of Steel.
I do too.
BVS was pretty good, although I could see a lot of problems with it, until I watched the Ultimate Edition. We watched the Ultimate Edition watched it over 2 nights last week.
It's a 2-night event.
Well, I mean, we started really late after putting a kid to bed, and
And we were tired.
and it's over 3 hours long.
It's a long movie.
But I really enjoyed it. I honestly want to watch it again because I have a lot higher appreciation for it after watching the extended edition than I did just watching the regular in theaters. Still have problems with it.
What about you, Chris? And Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman. Have you liked these films?
Yeah, I liked them both. I liked Man of Steel. It's been a while since I've watched that one, but I don't remember having any issues with it.
It brings me to tears.
There
I
was
love
something
Man
about
of
Man of Steel.
So
that
emotional
opening scene, they really hammered home the father-son dynamic.
Oh
in
my
that film.
gosh.
They did.
That was a fun podcast.
I want to
too.
cry like it 3 times in that movie at least.
Yeah,
Like
that score was good. Too.
different. Yes, the score is awesome, and I really liked after we were watching BVS Ultimate again. We kind of noted how Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman have such distinct music cues, and after at the end, I mean, at the end of the movie, Superman's cue changes if you listen. There's
I can't wait to watch the.
yeah,
Ultimate.
there's some music that's missing there, but his audio cue, musical cue is still similar but different, and it's really cool. It's kind of haunting.
Abby actually wants to watch it too, so
Okay.
I'm gonna try to borrow that from you. All right, so I like Batman versus Superman. I mean, I kind of went back and forth with my opinion. I think when we reviewed it, I gave it a great.
Yeah, I think I was a good and a half.
And I would say if I was reviewing the original cut, not seeing the Ultimate, I would give it a good and a half. I'd give Man of Steel a great and a half. I take so much crap for liking that movie, but obviously the big thing about Suicide Squad, because the team as a whole kind of lesser known. The big thing here is this is the on-screen debut of one of the most popular characters in all of comic books, Harley Quinn, created by Paul Dini and Bruce Timm, Batman the Animated Series. Jerry, I know you love Batgirl. How big of a Harley Quinn fan are you?
I'm a pretty big Harley Quinn fan.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, Batman villains are just so fantastic. I mean, it's hard to think of a bad Batman villain. Like one that's really not.
Even the Clock King's pretty good.
Even the cool even the lamer Batman
Tut.
villains are still pretty cool.
Egghead.
And can be good stuff can be done with them, Julian Day. But Harley Quinn is one of my favorites. I mean, and I guess for me, I feel, I don't want to say, I'm trying to think the right way to phrase it. I don't say ownership of the character. I don't feel, certainly not ownership of the character or relate to the character. But Harley Quinn to me is one of the Batman characters that came about during my childhood.
Yeah.
Like watching Batman the Animated Series and Harley Quinn debuting and being on there, And a lot of people not knowing who she was, but to me, watching the cartoon, she was a big deal. I mean,
she's a core character for us because we grew up with her.
Yeah.
Whereas older Batman fans, she was interjected.
And so every time seeing more things like them teasing her for whatever was supposed to come up after Batman and Robin. Remember they kept talking about there's going to be Batman Triumphant.
It's going to be a Scarecrow.
Yeah, Batman Triumphant.
Jack Nicholson was going to come back.
I've never heard
crazy stuff. Man.
Yeah. But every time
podcast.
knowing that she was in comics, and then she was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, so it's really cool to see a character that I sort of like was present for the debut becoming such a big deal now.
How do you feel about Harley Quinn, Kristen?
I think she's a really fun character. Me being somebody who likes to analyze everything, I think she's a really interesting study. Because you see where she's been and you see where she goes.
It's so weird because she has such a good dynamic because she understands the whole psychological aspect of what makes the Joker tick maybe better than Batman does. And to have that perspective, and they actually really show her, I love that they're showing her as Dr. Harleen Quinzel. That was very well done. So I like Harley Quinn. You know, I'm not a huge fan. I know people who you look at their collections, it's all Harley Quinn, and you've shown that on your website and stuff. So I like her.
If I weren't collecting Batgirl stuff, I would collect Harley Quinn stuff.
Yeah,
that would probably be my next choice for a DC character.
My wife started to like Harley Quinn, which is interesting. I didn't think that would be a character she would really gravitate toward. All right,
watch out, Brad.
Yeah. Is that not going to be the most popular Halloween couples costume this year? Is Grilled Joker and Harley Quinn?
We've already been seeing them at some conventions.
Yeah, it's going to be huge on the convention circuit next summer, and it's going to be big for Halloween, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
But let's talk. To me, and this was crazy, and I knew he wasn't going to be in it much, and Joker only ended up being in this movie 10 to 15 minutes. All right, and that is Leto's Joker. It's no secret how much I love the Nolan Batman movies, and I love Ledger's performance, my all-time favorite film performance. I mean, I went in with big expectations, and what's crazy is my wife and I, a couple years ago, before we were married, we were watching Dallas Buyers Club. I actually wrote a review for that on epicreview.com way back when. And Leto, he won an Oscar for playing a transvestite aid victim in that film. And
Transgender.
Transgender. I'm sorry. All right, my apologies. But he won an Oscar for that role, completely transformed. I remember telling my wife I hadn't seen somebody transform for a role like this since Ledger's Joker. It was true method acting. I said that's who they should get to play the next Joker. Lo and behold, fast forward 4 years later, he is playing Joker. I loved his Joker. I really did. People are giving it a lot of crap. And I was talking to Jerry about this. The best way I can describe this Joker is, and my buddy Will, who I went to college with, we were talking about this. You never forget that scene at midnight when Joker does the pencil trick. I remember being in a theater, sold out, and to make this pencil disappear.
Yes.
The biggest collective gasp, personally, I've ever heard a theater give. It was just, you could have heard a pin
It's a shocking
drop.
scene.
Yes,
you can't recreate the first time you see that. You just can't. But the way he was on edge, or he had the audience on edge for that scene, not that Ledger didn't do that throughout, but that's the way Leto was every second he was on this screen in this film. I felt like he was turned up to a 10 the whole time. Whereas Ledger could go from a 10 to a 5 to a 6. And he was really dialed up. That was intentional, I feel like. What'd you guys think of Leto's Joker? Kristen?
I thought he was fantastic. Very well done. I was very impressed. I was a little bit, I thought that he might be in it a bit more, just because he was so hyped. The first trailer that came out was the Joker, had the song, that was really focused on the Joker, whatever it's called.
Purple
I Started
Lamborghini?
a Joke.
Oh, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know the music.
I can't remember what it's called. But, it was all focused on the Joker. I thought he was going to be in it a bit more, but that aside, he did a fantastic job.
Leto thought he was going to be in it more, too, apparently, because I'm really kind of nervous. I mean, this is a first world problem I'm not going to lose sleep over, but I hope he honors his contract. I'm assuming he has a multi-picture deal. I know Margot Robbie does to play Harley, but I'm hoping he'll come back to play Joker in a Batman film because he is very mad at the studio. He believes that his scenes shouldn't have been cut, and they were some of the best parts of the movie, so they probably shouldn't have been cut. Do you think there'll be a director's cut in this film?
I'm sure there will be, particularly depending on how well...
how big the drop-off is.
How well Batman versus Superman did. One of the things this made me think about was with how long Jared Leto was on the screen was Anthony Hopkins is known for Silence of the Lambs, and he was in that movie for less than half an hour on screen time. Mm-hmm. And he haunts that movie and makes that movie what... I mean, Jodie Foster's awesome in that movie as well, and the guy who plays Buffalo Bill is awesome as well. But Anthony Hopkins owns that movie. And I think they did a great job in restraining the use of the Joker in this movie, because you come out saying, I want to see a movie with this guy.
It was a good tease.
Yeah, it was a good tease.
And that's my guess.
But it was more than a cameo. Because this movie easily could have become Harley Quinn, Joker, and Batman. Yep. Easily could have. And I think it required some real restraint to not make it that. To let these characters stand on their own.
There's got to be some miscommunication between Ayer and Leto, or Warner Brothers and Leto, because Leto didn't think this was going to be a tease. They shot a lot more and they cut him. So they need to... DC has a messaging problem, I feel like.
I really wonder if this happened later in editing, because one of the things is this is a fairly short movie.
It's 2 hours.
But everybody talked about how long Superman Batman was and how long superheroes movies. This one is pretty quick, it's pretty snappy, and it lets lets the theater move more showings of it. So I don't know if that was the intention of giving people a shorter movie for characters they don't know as well. On Leto's Joker, I liked him, and you're right, Brad. Heath Ledger is still my favorite on-screen Joker. Still my favorite. Still the voice I hear when I hear the Joker a lot of the time. It goes back and forth between him and Mark Hamill. Yeah. Depending on the tone of what I'm reading and stuff.
And if you would have told me before The Dark Knight I would hear anybody but Mark Hamill, I would have not believed you. But that's how good that was.
Jared Leto definitely gave a very creepy vibe to the Joker in a different way, an almost inhuman way. I think the teeth made me think of almost like a shark. Yeah. Just gave him this almost like shark-like personality that I was never really sure what he was going to do. I mean, the Joker is always kind of unpredictable, but there was a really strange quality to this Joker.
He does a lot of acting with his eyes here, too. I mean, those eyes are dead. You see no soul in there.
And apparently, according to some young ladies we know, the Joker is totally bae. That's what they told me.
Before anyone else.
That's
what bae means.
Sure, yeah.
You're my bae before anyone else.
Well, they told me he was totally bae. So I assume that means that they thought the Joker was very good looking, or they were really attracted to the Joker.
The Joker was good looking, or Jared Leto's good looking?
They said the Joker in that movie, totally bae. So
that's funny. I would have never thought I would have heard that.
I don't know.
All right, let's go.
Just throwing it out there. So the ladies love that Joker.
89 reference.
89 reference.
All right, so we all like Leto's Joker. I think this room's in agreement.
Mm-hmm. The only thing I think is going to be interesting is Leto is a younger Joker with an older Batman. Significantly. I mean, not like crazy significantly, but that's going to be interesting to see that dynamic there, I think.
Hopefully we'll see that.
Played up on.
I want to see, yeah. But did you just having that there, and maybe we'll get into that in a minute about specific scenes, but...
Yeah, we're going to get into a lot and spoil it.
I'm
just trying to get general thoughts so we don't spoil it for anybody, even though a lot of people's already seen this. The movie made $135 million opening weekend, had a 61% drop from Friday to Saturday, which was only second to Batman vs. Superman historically at the box office.
But $40 million more than the last August opening weekend holder,
which was Guardians of the Galaxy.
So this movie did really well opening.
Oh yeah, opened great. Huge pre-sales. All right, let's talk about Margot Robbie, Harley Quinn. Of course, this is all spoiler-free right now. She kind of had... She has that Brooklyn accent. She had that in Wolf of Wall Street. Did you see Wolf of Wall Street? Mm-mm. Great movie. She was very good in that next to DiCaprio. Perfect choice for Harley Quinn, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you guys think? Kristen?
She did fantastic. She just, I don't know, she did a really, really good job. She had the accent down. She had the personality down. She pulled it off very well.
She brought this character to life for me, and just the way that she could mix together being like really menacing and dangerous with being very playful and juvenile, with being very like attractive. I mean, just
and
mix
she had
all
a
these
tad
together.
of compassion sprinkled in.
Yeah, I mean, Harley Quinn is so complex in the comics. I mean, in her new series that's been going on for a couple years now,
Amanda Connerman.
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely become an anti-hero. You know, I mean, she's in the new series. I mean, she's left the Joker behind. She's done with him. She's gone back to practicing as a psychologist. She's gone back to practicing. So she sometimes looks normal and dresses normal, but her real personality is still the Harley Quinn personality, and she helps people and stray animals. But when people make her mad, she
goes full
overreacts. Yeah, I mean it's this whole mixture of contradictions. Like, this is the person who cries at the Sarah McLachlan commercials with the animals, and yet if you piss her off,
I cry at that.
Oh, I do too. That has no problem taking somebody out and doesn't bat an eye. Yeah. Like, it's this crazy series of contradictions, and I think Margot Robbie pulled it off amazingly well. Honestly, the only complaints I hear from people are that they don't like her new costume, but Harley Quinn has had a series of costume changes
and that's
in the last few
marketing
years.
Too, because,
and if you haven't read any comics, the only thing you know is Batman the Animated Series. A lot of people don't realize that she's changed her look so many times, as have so many other characters.
Yeah, and you get, I'm not going to spoil it, but you do get different classic looks. This is not the only, you don't just see what we see in the trailer. There are other costumes, if not displayed, they're shown.
Yeah.
When we were on the way home, Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn's what really I think I'm going to take and remember from this film. To me, she owned this role. Not quite to the level that Ledger owned Joker, but kind of in the same vein. I felt like she was Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to do. I mean, there's a handful of superhero actors. You know, you had Downey as Tony Stark, and you have Professor X, you have Patrick Stewart. Now, I got that kind of same vibe here. That this was Dr. Harleen Quinzel. This was Harley Quinn. I loved it. I thought she was fantastic. So,
was she totally bae?
She was bae.
She was totally bae.
I'd say,
if that means what we think it means, she was totally bae. So.
All right, I'm going to say that I was wrong. Jerry and I had a debate about this.
It got ugly.
We were counting down our top 10 most anticipated movies, and we both had this like 1 or 2 or something. Suicide Squad.
I had it 2. I had Civil War in front of this.
I think that was me as well.
I still think Civil War's a better movie.
I do too. But okay.
This was really good.
All right. Will Smith's still a star. But here, he hasn't been a Will Smith style badass to this level since I Am Legend. When have you seen him on a roll? Just that vibe of Will Smith coming off. And this is an ensemble film.
Yeah.
And he is overshadowing a bit because it's Will Smith. But so many one-liners, right? Triangle. If you don't stand for nothing, you ain't nothing. I mean, just, it is classic 90s, early 2000s.
There's still a serious edge here. You know, this is not like completely crazy Will Smith. Like, you know, silly. There's still a serious edge there, but yeah, this is totally some classic Will Smith, Big Willie style going on.
That was refreshing to see, and he can turn that on. And apparently he turned down Independence Day 2 to do this, which I think was a wise decision.
A good choice.
He wanted $20 million to do Independence Day 2, and they should have paid him that probably, because that would have made him some money back. But that's a different discussion. Let's talk about, last thing before we get into spoilers, the soundtrack. A lot of people have a love-hate relationship with this soundtrack. It's no secret the best soundtrack going into this for a superhero film was that Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack. It resonated with a lot of people, and you could tell that's what they were going for.
That was the last... When I bought Guardians of the Galaxy, the soundtrack, the Awesome Mix Volume 1, I think I hadn't bought a CD or music download... I mean, I buy music downloads, but I hadn't bought a CD or anything in years that was new. That was like the first thing I bought in years.
This soundtrack's awesome. People think it's too on the nose. People think it's too many hits. People think that they burnt their money on the licensing rights to these songs, which they had to pay a crap ton, because you had the Stones in here.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a music
And they're
person,
not all on the soundtrack, which is like that you could buy.
Yeah.
All these songs are not on the soundtrack, which is frustrating to me.
Yeah, I enjoyed the soundtrack.
Because I'd buy it.
It was spot on. So, you know, you had like sympathy for the devil when Amanda Waller shows up. I mean, so maybe it was a little too on the nose, but I enjoyed it. Did you guys enjoy this soundtrack?
I thought the music was fitting for the character. I didn't really have any issues. I didn't think it was too on the...
Did it ever take you out of the film? Some people are complaining it did.
I thought it fit the style of the first third of this movie. Mm-hmm. All the introductions and stuff was lots of quick cuts, lots of cutaways, lots of, very different type of style for the movie of, portraying everything than the second half of the movie or second 2/3 or whatever. Most of these little music cues do come at the beginning of the movie.
And I want to talk about those introductions, but I don't want to spoil it. So with that, if it's okay with you, let's go ahead and roll the real forward spoilers. Alright, Jerry, so you hit on those intros a bit.
Yeah.
People hated these intros. I liked it, and I'm kind of stealing this from Kevin Smith. This was his opinion on it. I'll quote him. He thought the intros were very comic book-like. A beginning of a new series, we're introducing each character, some characters more unknown.
I loved it. This would have been, honestly, if we were to look at this movie in parts, the first third of this movie was one of my favorite parts in a superhero film. I loved the introduction of these characters. Mm-hmm. I liked the way we saw a little bit about them. We saw some cool scenes or some familiar scenes. I'm not sure that I've had more joy watching a comic book film than watching the scene where the Joker and Harley Quinn are driving down the road in the Joker's...
That's how they introduce Harley.
In his purple Lamborghini, causing mayhem. And they look behind him, and the Batmobile shows up. Mm-hmm. And Batman's on top of the car all of a sudden, and Harley Quinn is shooting up saying, "You're ruining date night, Bats." That, to me, was like... Everything finally came together. Mm-hmm. Here's the Joker, here's Harley Quinn, here's Batman, they're in Gotham City, we're watching this in a movie, and it was
surreal.
I was overjoyed. If I had walked in that theater and they said, this is this whole movie, this scene is the whole movie, and the scene where the Joker drives off the pier and he's gone and Harley's like underwater and Batman goes to save her, and she like opens her eyes and tries to like stab Batman underwater... it was great. It was so what I wanted to see from the DCEU.
I'm glad you mentioned this.
Loved it.
After the Nolan Batman movies, you and I a couple of years ago were talking about what do we want. And you said, I want a Batman-like cinematic universe with the Bat family, with these supporting characters. Not outlandish, but a universe where more bigger characters could come to life, right? And that scene felt like that. People got mad about this scene, Jerry. They didn't like that Batman punched Harley Quinn.
Just trying to stab him. Here's one of the things
he didn't beat her continuously.
He knocked her out.
We've already established that this Batman is, for lack of a better term, kind of brutal.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we've already established that. I mean, he doesn't have a no-kill rule. Who says he doesn't have a I don't hit women, you know?
Yeah, but people were disgusted by that. I took it as, hey, like, he didn't sit there and wail on her.
He didn't wail on her. He knocked her out to get
Here's
her
the thing to me. Harley Quinn is supposed to be one of the most dangerous people in the world, that they're keeping her in Belle Reve prison. They're keeping her in a black site prison, locked in a cage, because she's killed multiple guards when she's been incarcerated.
Yeah.
I thought this movie did a really good job of saying, you know what? Every one of these characters is dangerous. We're not sitting here being like, oh, these female characters are fragile and they always need to be saved. You know, everybody in that movie is top-level dangerous, and the movie treats them that way. And it was really nice to see that everybody's dangerous. Everybody's, you know, you can't trust anybody. We don't have damsels in distress in this movie, really. I mean, even though part of the thing is the Joker's trying to rescue Harley Quinn from prison, to some extent, she's still pretty competent on it. She's still insanely competent and, you know, joyfully killing people.
Let's talk about this Harley-Joker relationship. Even maybe more so than it is harder to get Harley Quinn right is getting this relationship right without offending someone. Basically, she's an abuse victim in the classic sense throughout the Batman mythos. Mm-hmm. As far as, you know, not necessarily physically abused, maybe that's implied, but she's verbally and mentally abused, and the Joker used her, whereas she flat out loves Joker. Now, you had a sense of that here. One of the scenes that people got upset with was the Common scene. The scene in which the rapper Common was basically, the Joker was basically pimping out Harley Quinn. People felt very uncomfortable with this. They said it objectified women, it objectified Harley, that she wasn't more an object. Yet later in the film, you see the Joker not once but twice risking everything to go after Harley Quinn. It felt like, in some sick, twisted way, Joker really loved this Harley Quinn. Even though, not as much as I'm using Harley, he seemed to really love her, which is kind of a new wrinkle, but that Common scene really made people rub them the wrong way. I think it was just meant to show how much of a loose cannon Joker was, because did he actually pimp her out to Common? He did not.
I was really curious of where that was going to go.
Yeah, me too.
And of course, what does he do?
It's almost like he's using her as a test. That's what it seemed like to me.
He's using her still.
He
her,
kills Common.
Yeah, he kills him right away, yeah.
I mean,
it's really strange.
It really comes across to me as a test.
And that's your kind of big introduction to the Joker.
I expected the relationship between Joker and the Joker and Harley to be more violent in this movie than it turned out to be.
I wondered if it would be, yeah.
I thought there would be more things. I mean, he's certainly manipulative, and there's certainly the whole that, you know, I mean, he's used her to some extent, and there's a lot
shock therapy, went with her into acid. I mean,
there's a lot of unhealthy things there, but it was definitely not as abusive as I thought it was going to be. So, and he does seem, you're right, he does seem to care about her in a really strange way. So,
well, my thoughts on their relationship is that he saw her as sort of an experiment. Let's see what I can. Let me have some fun here. She's coming in here to save me. Let me see if I can ruin her. And throughout the process, he must fall for her in some way. I mean, he's still manipulative. He's still, I don't know if violent is quite the right word to describe the scenes.
You don't see him beating her.
No, but
like
very
that.
The shock therapy part is really, but he's making her like him.
Yeah,
I mean, there's definitely not anything healthy about this.
A very like Bride of Frankenstein kind of vibe out of that scene.
So,
well, okay, let's talk about that imagery. You talked about. You had a question. You said this film's kind of uneven. These whatever you can say whatever you want about these DC. EU movies, but whether it's Man of Steel, BVS, or this, they're visually stunning.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And they play to iconic imagery, whether it's Batman in the mech suit, all right, whether it is, in this case, we get that shot, that Alex Ross shot of Joker in the black tux and Harley in the classic outfit.
Yes. I went crazy in the theater, right?
Yeah, he did.
Did he squeal?
Yeah.
I think he did.
Yeah. When you see that scene where she's in Margot Robbie's in the classic Harley Quinn outfit, Jared Leto's in the black tux and they're dancing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The rose.
Yeah, with the rose, yes.
Yeah.
So crazy to see that.
And this kind of gets
Crazy
me
good.
to a bigger question with these DCEU movies. Even more so, and Marvel has plenty of Easter eggs, don't get me wrong. It seems like these movies in the DC cinematic universe are more geared toward DC fans than critics and general audiences. And that's why you and I and all of us find ourselves, even if we can't love the movie as a whole, we absolutely love aspects of all three of these movies so far.
This one to me was a Batman versus Superman. I can totally understand why a lot of people would not enjoy that movie. It's one of those, I think, if you're really not invested in those characters, it loses a lot. This movie, I had a harder time understanding how the reviews were so negative for this
So did
film.
Abby and I. We were driving home and like, why do people hate this movie?
I haven't talked to anybody who saw this movie that didn't love it, and really enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the dossiers that were shown early. You know, we talked about them going through the files, and apparently there's something in the file there that shows Harley Quinn was involved in the murder of Robin.
Oh, really?
You didn't see
I
this?
didn't see that. No,
Yeah, I didn't see it in the theater, but I read about it after the fact, and they had clear shots of it. Apparently, she was an accomplice of the Joker, or the Joker had her do it to prove something to him. There's a lot of speculation over, and I'm assuming I guess we're to assume it's Jason Todd. I don't know. Who knows in this universe? But to me, I feel like we're seeing, and this kind of scares me about the DC entertainment universe, we're seeing these very iconic puzzle pieces laid out. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's two films that's going to connect everything together. The Batman solo film and the Justice League movie. And if those movies fail at connecting these things, like if you tease a death of a Robin, and that's never alluded to, of how that affects Batman psychologically, how that affects Harley, how that affects Joker. If they never show something like that on screen, I'm not showing, saying show a bludgeoning necessarily. If they don't show something like that on screen, I'm just worried we're not going to get a payoff for all these pieces being laid out. Do you think we will? Jerry's scared. He's scaring me.
I don't know. I guess I don't see some of those things as big of a deal. Like, I kind of feel like this DC universe is not retread. I mean, obviously the death of Superman story they're doing again. Mm-hmm. But a lot of things they're doing are very new or very different. They're doing something unusual. Where the Marvel movies are kind of going over famous storylines. Mm-hmm. The DC is kind of doing like different things. They're kind of like the storylines you like have happened in the past, and now we're sort of doing something different.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
Which statement. I mean, both have their merits,
and they're both adaptations. Marvel's not directly adapting Civil War from the comics.
It's very different. But
all right, let's talk about this. And I really we'll get Kristen's opinion on this. Okay. I'm a big fan of the Slash Filmcast. In fact, that's one of the podcasts that inspired me to start podcasting, along with Kevin Smith's podcast, Fat Man on Batman. Mm-hmm. But Jeff Kanata is a co-host on the Slash Filmcast, and he said this film is a representation of the worst of our society. In the way that Harley... This is not verbatim, but, loosely quoting here. And the way that Harley was objectified and Amanda Waller was called gangsta by Will Smith after shooting up everybody in Midtown City. So, does this movie... And Jerry added a few things here in our show notes. You have Crazy Australian Guy. You have Rick Flag, the straight-laced military man. Diablo, a Hispanic gangster. Does this movie play up to stereotypes too much? What do you think, Kristen?
I really didn't think that it did. I mean, I think that Will Smith was calling out, his character was calling out Amanda Waller You know, I mean, I guess that was just the terminology. I didn't really have any issues with it.
I mean, did anybody really take critics out of it? Were there many people that walked away from Will Smith saying gangsta after that scene thinking there was some kind of racial bias or stereotype? I mean, obviously, I guess as 3 white people, we can't really comment on that, but I have not heard anybody really talk about that except on that podcast. But, I mean, they went as far to call this movie pornographic, playing up to our... I'm just pornographic in its overwhelming imagery meant to stimulate the senses and nothing else. Like, there's no substance there. And I don't agree with that.
I think there is some substance.
I think there is substance, too. But it seems like there is such, more so than any movie I can remember in recent memory, there being this big of a disconnect between the critical community and the fans. Fans have petitioned Rotten Tomatoes to raise the tomato meter, which is odd that Warner Brothers owns a stake in Rotten Tomatoes, which I did not know.
Yeah. And, I mean, Rotten Tomatoes is an aggregate site. You know, they're just taking the critical reviews that they take, that they accept, and doing a,
But so many people use that. We don't, but so many people use that as the end-all, be-all instead of making their own opinions.
A lot of people do. And, a lot of times if you're going to look at a movie and you're going to be like, well, am I going to go watch a movie? If you're not sure about it, you might look at what critics say. And a lot of times, I think it's a decent idea, to look at some reviews. Before you spend a lot of money on a movie, at least, unless you have a lot of interest in it already.
There's some movies we're going to go see no matter what.
Yeah. I don't care what someone said about this movie. I was going to go watch it. I was really interested in it. Everything I'd seen looked good. It doesn't matter. If there's a new horror movie out that I don't know much about, I might read a couple reviews, be like, okay, is this worth spending, $8 to $10 for, or should I wait till it's, on Netflix or something and go see something else?
I kind of want to tie this back into the conversation we were having about the Killing Joke earlier, is that maybe not necessarily the stereotypes, but something like the Harley and Joker relationship, in which, Harley's objectified, she's abused. But that's part of this story. Mm-hmm. That's part of what makes Joker such a fiend and so despicable. And just, what do you want? Do you want a PC fairy tale version of this? Because that wouldn't be true to the character.
These are supposed to be really bad people.
Yeah.
And in this movie, the people who you think would be the traditional heroes, Amanda Waller kills people when they're not useful to her. People that are her own people, that she shows that they're not useful to her. The guards at the prison are abusive and violent towards the inmates. And honestly, some of the people who are the bad guys end up being the better guys.
Exactly.
The better guys.
Jerry and I were discussing this after the movie. One of the things that I thought it pointed out, I wish that they had shown Amanda Waller's personality a little bit more, because I feel like if you didn't know much about Amanda Waller going into this movie, then some of this stuff may not have made a whole lot of sense to you. My thought, you don't know exactly where they're going until they get there, when the Suicide Squad is assembled and sent out. And my thought was, I kept thinking, where are they going? This doesn't look like this is where the problem is. Yeah. And then they get there, and you're like, oh my gosh, they're there to rescue Amanda Waller. That's their mission. What the crap? And but then I realized, but it's Amanda Waller. That's exactly what she was.
How did she get in that situation?
Yeah, and you don't exactly know that either.
I think the purpose was they were there monitoring what was going on.
Yeah.
And it got out of control.
Not really nitpicking.
That's my guess. Well, Kristen, after we watched it, had brought up some parts to me that I thought were legitimate. Earlier, when we were just talking about the way this movie flows, the first part is very stylish. It's very quick-paced. It reminds me more of something like a Deadpool, in that it uses lots of kind of non-traditional narrative and things like that to tell the story. About 2/3 of the way through, or about 1/3 of the way through, it becomes a very traditional kind of boots on the ground, single setting superhero kind of thing. They're traveling through the city to rescue
to stop a giant beam of blue light.
To rescue Amanda Waller and stop the Enchantress and her brother Incubus.
Yeah.
Which is something we'll talk about in a minute.
And so, it did have a little bit of an uneven pace to it.
I don't know who's... It's almost like somebody at Warner Brothers is editing these movies as opposed... Like, I'm talking about like a studio exec. Is saying, let's edit and put the coolest scenery possible in here, even if it doesn't narratively flow well. Whereas I feel like, God love him or God hate him, Zack Snyder had a cut, obviously. Yeah. And I think there's a David Ayer cut that flows better.
I'd like to see it. I'd love to see it.
It seems like Warner Brothers, the only director they'll trust to cut their stuff's Christopher Nolan. And they gotta, if you're paying these guys big bucks and you're entrusting them with these beloved characters, you gotta trust their editing style. Talk about Enchantress. Alright, here's a character that wasn't she in Justice League Dark?
She had a big part in in Justice League Dark. At least the New 52 versions.
And we kind of have two versions of Enchantress, right? You have the actual being that is the Enchantress, right? And then you have the archaeologist. What's her name?
June Moon.
All right, June Moon.
June Moon is the archaeologist who's possessed by a spirit called the Enchantress. Okay. An ancient spirit.
And I'm not really familiar in the book. Is that how it goes in the books pretty much?
That's pretty much, yeah. And there's a lot of stories, just like dark stories, where like Enchantress becomes too powerful and overcomes June Moon.
So in this film... Enchantress is set up as basically somebody that Rick Flag, played by Joel Kinnaman, they've got a relationship. He's in love with June Moon,
right?
And he's trying to basically keep the Enchantress part of her in check. And the only reason that she gets to kind of walk free as opposed to the other members of the Suicide Squad is because they trust Rick Flag to be able to control her due to she loves him and he loves her.
But they have the Enchantress's heart in a device so that they can destroy it.
They have a failsafe.
Yeah, they have a failsafe. They think they have a failsafe.
Exactly. So this movie, I liked I loved the scene where Enchantress shows up in the Situation Room. I thought that was intense.
Enchantress is crazy looking.
Yeah, no.
She looks so different from June Moon.
Yeah, and it's the same person.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I mean, if you're really looking,
really
you can
good
see
costuming and effects.
Going,
yeah,
it was a cool way to do that.
And I love her at the beginning of this movie, but then they play her up to be this big bad, where she basically summons her brother. Incubus, like you said, and I
think that's the name.
He's got to be some of the worst CG I've ever seen in my life. Incubus. There was something very off-putting about him. Here's what's odd: if you watch the trailer, the multiple trailers for Suicide Squad, which I only watched once. I only watched the Bohemian Rhapsody and the San Diego Comic-Con trailer from last year's con, but it seems like it would have made more sense for the Suicide Squad, and probably been more entertaining for them to be going after Joker as opposed to Enchantress. I feel like there's a much more interesting movie there.
That would have been an interesting dynamic, because you would have had Harley Quinn being forced to.
Yeah. And maybe it shows her kind of getting her own agency, separating from the Joker. That's I didn't hate the Enchantress storyline. No, I think there was a better storyline there that just seemed obvious, and I can't believe they didn't go with that.
Enchantress was the best way to go.
And something about Enchantress, it was so weird. It almost felt like they ran out of money with the CG with her. I know they didn't. But it felt that way. She looked so awesome in the Situation Room at the beginning. And then at the end, when they're fighting her in the middle of Midtown City with the blue light beaming from the sky, which is a terrible superhero trope, but it is what it is at this point. It looks like a well-done Power Rangers villain. I mean, so it looks better than a typical Power Rangers villain, but then again, it looks like a Power Rangers villain. So, something about that CG with her at the end, the way she was moving and shimmering, what was up with that?
Well, when did it change? Did it change when she got her heart? Or
I think maybe that was when she got her hearts, when she changed.
Because her look would have changed.
But remember, she had that scrolling hair. And
oh, yeah, there was something.
And then she has the whole, hair piece. Almost kind of looks like Cleopatra in a way.
Yeah.
And something was weird about that.
I don't know. I didn't think she was a bad villain. I thought it was an odd choice for the Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
I thought she was a good character.
Yeah.
Not a good villain.
Not
They
good
set
villain.
her up well. They set up June Moon well.
Yeah.
And the Rick Flag dynamic with her, but they just kind of pissed away that character. I hate to say it that way, but that's kind of the way I felt. So, I don't know. But, so Batman, did y'all like how it was used in this film?
I did.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, it could have so easily become, the Suicide Squad and Batman show.
Yeah.
If they'd kept bringing him in every time. So it was really awesome to see, yes, this is obviously definitely the same universe and all that kind of stuff, but it was nice, and it was nice to see him doing his thing, but it was nice to let the stars shine.
Do these movies cheapen Batman's detective skills? Because you have the closing scene here. It's a post-credit scene. I know I'm kind of jumping the gun. We're not quite done yet. But the post-credit scene where basically he has to go to Amanda Waller, Bruce Wayne. Not even in Batman outfit. In completely Bruce Wayne. And ask for the files on the Justice League. The ones he doesn't have yet. The world's greatest detective. And I'm still in this from...
Yes, for Enchantress's file is there, though. I thought it was everything that they had on Metahumans.
Okay, everything they had on
I think that was their Metahuman files.
They botched that scene, and this is what Casey and Geeks Worldwide said last night. We were discussing this. How awesome would it have been if Amanda Waller goes into her office, shuts the door, sits down, and Batman's behind her.
That would have been
in the full outfit. He's like, I need the files.
That would have been much cooler.
Instead,
much cooler, yeah.
They're literally eating steak. It looks like they were at the Suicide Squad rap party at a steakhouse.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, let's film a post-credits scene. And I don't... Maybe they should just stay away from post-credit scenes.
I think Batman at this point, though... his identity seems much less secure now in this universe.
Do you think Amanda Waller would know who Batman is?
I think she would, based on the agency they gave her.
What she said. I mean, she even says something to him. He says, me and my friends will... She says something about your activities or something, or, whatever, your costume or something like that. So they imply that she already knows who he is.
Yeah.
So it's not going to make a whole, I mean,
the fact that they were meeting, not incognito is not...
Yeah.
Is not anything that bothered me.
So
she would have known who he was.
I get the idea for this, that what they're moving towards. I mean, this is just me looking at this from kind of a big picture perspective. Is they're really moving this towards the Justice League stories and not the solo Batman stuff. I know there's a solo Batman movie coming out, but they're really making Batman... They're working on this bigger level where... it's harder for Batman to remain anonymous.
Have you heard the rumor for the solo Batman movie that him and Johns wrote? The rumor is that it's going to be basically Arkham City. It's going to be Batman taking Jared Leto Joker in to Arkham, and then basically Joker pitting a lot of the Rogues Gallery against Batman.
Okay.
Which to me, that sounds fascinating. I would like to see that, but I liked how Batman was handled too. I want to comment on the...
I love Ben Affleck as Batman.
I think
he's doing a great job.
I love
his
Bruce.
Bruce. I like him as Bruce, too.
Very, very comic book-like. Even detective skills aside. They introduced Batman in that scene with Deadshot. The big theme is father-daughter. Deadshot, Will Smith's relationship with his daughter. And hey, here's this terrible person here's a guy who's an assassin who does terrible things, but deep down in his heart, maybe he's not a terrible person.
He comes across as, I'm a really good guy, I have a heart of gold, I just like to get paid for killing people.
Exactly, and people have a big problem with this. I've heard critics call the scene at the end, because they all kind of ask for things. Croc asked for BET. They asked for things at the end as a reward.
Espresso machine.
That's what Harley wants.
Harley wants espresso.
Basically a reward for stopping the Enchantress. And Will Smith won't supervise. He wants to see his daughter, but so they offer supervised visitation. And there's a scene in which Smith is helping her with her homework, and it's geometry or something. And she ties it back to him being an assassin. I've heard people call this scene perverse. That they're twisting this scene. They're justifying the use of guns. They're justifying killing in this innocent kid. And this movie has so much gunplay that is sickening. Come on, guys. Really?
They're not good guys.
Well, they're not. Also, she's the one that brought it up, not him. She's the one setting the example. He ran with it, and I think I was kind of like, okay, are you seriously still going this far with this? I mean, I got the comedy. I thought it was a little too far, but she's the one that started the setup. It's not like he was, throwing it at her.
I'm gonna get into some closing questions here, and we'll give our rating at the end. I brought up a lot of outlandish accusations about this film from critics. And do you feel that critics have an inherent bias against DC films at this point?
I don't think there's an inherent bias against DC films.
Is there a bias toward Marvel films? Then? If there's not one against DC, is there a bias toward Marvel? Because these Thor movies, they're okay. But they're getting 70% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Suicide Squad was better than any of the 2 Thor movies.
I really like the Marvel movies. I think
too.
Marvel plays it really safe. Marvel movies have nothing hardly that you could construe as offensive in them. Yeah, they're pretty family friendly. Well, here's the thing. I don't think there's one, our little one's just about 3. I don't think there's one of the DC movies that I would be comfortable with her watching. We watched most of Avengers with her because the kid loves the Hulk.
Yeah.
The kid loves the Hulk. And there wasn't concern. And Captain America. There was a lot of concern there. The DC movies are just very different. And it's hard to jump on the Marvel movies for anything controversial because it's just not in there.
Yeah.
They don't push the envelope.
It's not really pushing the envelope much. The DC movies do. I mean, they do kind of push the envelope a bit. And as a critic, it's easy to take something like that and jump on it and make an outlandish accusation and get lots of hits and lots of people coming back to read your article.
Is this clickbait, though? Or is it true critical? Is it truly a critical process?
I think it's somewhere in the middle.
But
I think there is a lot of clickbait criticism.
I think DC...
It's very easy to do clickbait criticism because somebody can say one thing about how terrible a certain scene is, and if news places and every geek site and whatever picks it up and runs with it, well,
like Geeks Worldwide,
you're getting tons of hits. For asking a question.
And the thing is, I think that DC fans, whether you admit it or not, you prefer one company over the other.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I've always said, as a company as a whole, I prefer Marvel, even though Batman's my favorite character. People label me as a DC fan, which is crazy. I'm more of a Marvel fan, to be honest. Now, again, Batman trumps everything for me, but I think it's this feeling that, we saw years and years of good Marvel movies. We saw them patted on the back. We saw them have their time in the sun. And now here we finally have, we're seeing Harley Quinn on screen. We're seeing this comic book-like universe. And you're crapping on it so much that it is actually impacting. You cannot tell me these reviews don't impact box office numbers. Because you're talking huge drop-offs from one day to the next, like historical drop-offs. And critics could ultimately kill this thing before it really gets going. I think it's upsetting DC fans. As a DC fanboy, do you feel that way?
I mean, it doesn't really bother me that much, because, it doesn't affect me going to watch the movie or not.
But it will affect you if they churn out bad review after bad review after bad Rotten Tomato score, and they just said, well, we're scrapping this.
But,
And they do affect the money made. Because these movies are having big openings, but not...
I'm curious how Squad will do the second week. I really am, because, like I said, I have heard nothing but good things from people I know who have seen this movie.
Me too.
So, and I could not say that about Batman vs. Superman. Batman vs. Superman people were very mixed on. this movie, so I'm really hoping that good word of mouth from individuals will kind of trump critics, which maybe critic stuff people are on to the next whatever is coming out this week. 9 Lives or something, and, you know, Pete's Dragon. I mean, critic stuff has moved on for the most part. So I'm hoping this...
And Pete's Dragon beats Suicide Squad this weekend, which it very well may, because that's a family movie.
Yeah.
I think it will be seen as a disappointment. Do you care what critics say, Kristen?
Not usually.
Not usually. Okay. Alright. There's probably going to be a Suicide Squad 2. There may be a Harley Quinn solo movie.
Yeah, Margot Robbie is really taking an interest in that. I think she's the producer for it, and it being kind of a mixture of not just Harley Quinn, but she's really interested in like bringing in the Birds of Prey, Batgirl, and kind of doing a team up of a lot of DC female heroes.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my question is, where do you want to see these characters go next? Is the main thing you want to see is a movie like that, a Harley Quinn solo movie? Do you want to see more Harley and Joker?
I definitely want to see more Harley and Joker. I want to see the mixture movie of all the female heroes. I'd like to see a Suicide Squad 2, but I think you could bring a lot of these characters. I mean, there's definitely a Suicide Squad 2, I think. I mean, they've greenlit it. I imagine it's probably going to happen.
I mean, it had a record-breaking opening in August. It's not like this movie crapped the bed.
So we'll see. I thought there were some good characters in there. I really liked El Diablo, and I was really sad that he
hit the dust.
That he died. I mean, he died. He went out as a hero.
Yeah,
he was a very complex character. I thought that scene when you said there was no substance. I thought that scene in the bar.
I didn't say that.
No. I know you said that there were critics that there was no substance in this movie. I thought that scene in the bar was very interesting because here's a group of characters that are supposed to be the worst of the worst that still have vulnerabilities, that still have people that they care about, that still have, show off these elements that they're still human. And it was just an interesting dynamic of looking at...
They show that they're more human than... working for.
Yeah, the people are working for who are traditionally the good guys in this movie.
And that bar scene, maybe that's the best scene in the whole movie. Because that scene makes
The best scene in the movie is when Harley and the Joker are driving in a purple Lamborghini and Batman comes out.
That's Jerry's best scene. But the thing is, I like Deadshot. I like Floyd Lawton. I like him in the comics. I liked him in Arrow. Thought that's always been an interesting character. I love Harley Quinn. Maybe not as much as Jerry, but I really like her as a character. Obviously, I love the Joker. But, this, not so much, Captain Boomerang, even though this may be the one role that Jai Courtney was actually good in.
Jai Courtney this was the most charisma I've ever seen him in a role.
That's not saying much.
No, he was a good captain. He was great as Captain Boomerang. He was very entertaining. I thought every scene he was in was really funny.
El Diablo. A character I know little about. A character that I don't care about one way or the other. I don't I don't dislike going in. They made that character resonate with me. Mm-hmm. So, to me, that's a success. And he is really... Maybe he's the most important member of the Suicide Squad.
Was probably the most powerful.
Yeah, probably.
He's quintessential to the plot, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like he was just a plot device. They made me care for that character.
Oh, yeah.
Did y'all like Joe Kinnaman as Rick Flag?
I thought he was okay. I mean, he wasn't, didn't have a chance to stand out, but kind of got the idea that, he could...
He's a good actor. He wasn't that great in this role. He wasn't...
There's not a lot to work with.
Yeah.
For what he had...
He's the straight-laced guy.
Yeah,
here you have these
He's the straight-laced military man. Yeah. Keeping him in line.
Yeah, with everybody else surrounding him, it's easy to be overshadowed.
Yeah, but I did like at the end when he kind of, destroyed the...
That was a good scene.
Yeah, he destroyed the...
That was at the bar, wasn't it?
Yeah, the piece of equipment that was, keeping them in line that could have activated their explosives in their neck. And he's like, I'm going to go do this. You can come with me. You're free to go.
If you want to see Joel Kinnaman at his best...
RoboCop.
No, not RoboCop.
I liked RoboCop.
We reviewed that, though. Yeah. I don't think you were there for that review.
No, but I liked the movie. I thought it was good. Not the review.
I know y'all watch a lot of Netflix. Do y'all watch House of Cards?
No, I've not seen
it. I think last season was, I don't know if it was the third, or I think last year was the fourth season of House of Cards. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was the third. Joel Kinnaman is the Republican nominee, and he's running against Frank Underwood. And he's basically playing Republican JFK, and he kills it. No pun intended with the JFK thing, but he kills it.
Oh, ouch.
I know it was a little bit of a dead shot, but...
Oh, wow.
He kills it there, and I'm like, he has a lot to work with. He thrives in that role. So don't judge Joel Kinnaman off of this. Kristen said, he's overshadowed a bit.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of movie, once again, he's the straight-laced guy who just keeps them in line. I thought Killer Croc was great. Mm-hmm. Killer Croc looked awesome. I did not expect him to have the accent that he had.
Yeah. Did he have any Louisianan in there?
What?
Cajun. Did you hear any Cajun accent at all?
Maybe. I mean, it was a southern accent, but once again, it was coming from a deep crocodile-like voice.
Yeah.
So it was hard to tell. It was hard to nail any specifics. But I did not expect that voice from him, but it worked.
It was good.
The effect was great. I like the fact that they made Croc a practical effect. You know, he's not just like a CG creation.
Yeah.
He's not massive. He could fit in with everybody else, yet he still was monstrous and powerful. And I thought that was a really good way to do it. I loved Katana. I know she didn't have a lot of time on the screen, but the parts of Katana's that they had, you know, they had a lot of references. Yeah, they showed a lot of references to her character. And
she was the one who got the short end of the stick, I'd say, of the main characters.
Yeah, I'd say her and
I almost feel like she was there perhaps for a setup for something later more than anything else.
Yeah.
She just hops on the plane.
Yeah,
she's here, Katana.
Kind of there, and I'm sure that her fighting skills were very important, but yeah, other than that, that's kind of all
she's pretty effective.
She's better in Arrow. I love Katana in Arrow.
Katana's in Arrow?
Yeah, she's great.
I don't watch Arrow.
This last season of Arrow was terrible. The one that just finished on TV, but season 3 is the one that has Katana and Adam, and they go to Nanda Parbat.
Yeah, you kind of see the setup.
Yeah, they develop her as a character a lot more, and she was in that brief animated Batman show.
Mm-hmm. Beware the Batman.
Beware the Batman. And she was
cool. One of the main characters.
She was basically his sidekick. She was Robin.
Yeah.
She wasn't Robin. She filled that role. Now, if you could add one character to the Suicide Squad roster in a sequel, who would it be?
Kristen.
I don't know.
Jerry?
Brad?
I'd say King Shark. Outrageous, outlandish. He could only be in there for 5 minutes, but I want to see King Shark.
I had thought about King Shark. Once again, I kind of feel like we already have Killer Croc.
Who's a better character.
There's a little bit too similar there. There were a couple characters I thought of. Black Manta could be a really good choice.
I gotta save him for Aquaman movie.
Well, so Black Manta could be introduced in Suicide Squad and then become a major player in an Aquaman movie. Black Manta is really good because he's a character that I think he's kind of like Deadshot. He's another, and it might be that there's too much similarity, that they're both very professional. They're both very straight-laced. They're very, very much the kind of character who I don't think they're as unpredictable as like Harley Quinn or Boomerang.
They're more calculated.
Yeah, they're more calculating in what they're doing. But you could add a team dynamic there. The one that I thought would be the best, after careful consideration, Poison Ivy.
That would be good.
Poison Ivy is in the new one. She was in the current Suicide Squad.
She's in the all new.
All new Suicide Squad. She's another recognizable character. Poison Ivy is sane enough that you're not going to worry her necessarily going off and killing everybody, but she still has a very different sense of morality where there's still kind of okay, what is she going to do?
Well, you don't worry that she's going to fly off the handle and kill everyone.
Right.
You worry that that's part of her plot all along.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting that. So
and Harley Ivy, such a good dynamic.
Yes.
And
the
rich
Harley and
history.
Ivy friendship
That would be
relationship
fantastic.
would be an interesting way to bring that forward as well.
So it could be so easy. Suicide Squad 2, Harley Quinn. This is my new roommate. There you go.
Yeah.
There it is. You don't have to overthink these things.
Suicide Squad 3 greenlit already. People go nuts.
Yeah.
People are going nuts. I was trying to think of anybody else that I thought would be really good for this, because trying to bring in, once again, I was trying to think of, like, who could another magical character be that they could bring in? You know, somebody that they could bring in that, you know, kind of takes the Enchantress role. I mean, they need a heavy hitter.
Yeah.
In this, you know, they need a heavy hitter,
A god tier like character.
Yeah, and I was trying to think of who that could be.
Bizarro.
I think
That'd be
Etrigan is just too powerful
Yeah.
to be, you know, and doesn't make sense to be taken by Suicide Squad.
The corpse of Zod.
The corpse of Zod.
With flipper hands.
Eclipso, nah, I don't think he could work in Suicide Squad very well. It'd be interesting to have sort of a truly heroic character who gets, like, somehow caught up in something and gets forced to work with Suicide Squad.
Like Arrow. Green Arrow.
That would be an interesting
That could
thing.
be interesting.
Like,
Yeah.
what if somebody arrested him as a vigilante and put a Green
And
Arrow in
Amanda
there?
Waller's basically blackmailing him into doing
Yeah.
this. And
And
he has
so-
to he has to play the Rick Flag role, maybe.
Yeah, and having a heroic character in there who's being put up in these circumstances. I think Suicide Squad gives so much room to do some really interesting things.
I agree.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, Arrow.
Remember,
man, we
for
should
years
go
there-
pitch to Warner.
For years there was that script supposedly floating around that was like a movie about Green Arrow, like stuck in a prison. It was like having to escape with all the supervillains.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it.
That was a
but-
big script for a while. It was supposed to be like DC's big thing. I don't know whatever happened to it.
Did you see the Joel Ostrander Easter egg?
John Ostrander.
Is it
right?
John?
Wasn't it? Isn't it Dr. Manhattan?
No, Joel. He's the guy who did Suicide Squad in the '80s. Joel Ostrander.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I heard someone say it, and I initially went to Dr. Manhattan.
And Joel Ostrander
okay.
did was not the first Suicide Squad, but what was considered the first commercially successful that had Rick Flag, that had Deadshot on the team.
John Ostrander.
Is it John?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. John Ostrander. But there was a building that said John Ostrander. The building.
Oh, that's
that they're
cool. No, I
going-
didn't.
So that was a cool little Easter egg, and you know there was probably a lot more in there. So
I'm sorry. Somebody said that one time, and I saw it somewhere, and I thought someone said John Osterman, which is Dr. Manhattan. And with some of the things they've done with Rebirth,
yeah,
I thought this was an Easter egg back to Watchmen. Okay,
yeah,
so I'm wrong.
That was cool. All right, so that's going to wrap it up. Before we give our rating, is there anything else you want to say about Suicide Squad? We broke that one down pretty well. Before we give a rating, we're all in agreement we'd recommend go see it.
Yeah, if you've enjoyed DC films, if you liked Deadpool, if you liked Guardians of the Galaxy, you know, if you're okay with something where it's not like a black and white, like good guys versus bad guys, then yes, go watch this movie.
All right, let's give our ratings. Jerry, we'll go around. What would you rate this movie on the confirmed Epic rating scale?
For me, I'm going to give it a great. It definitely has some problems in the second half of the movie where it loses a lot. The characters don't, but the plot and the storytelling narrative lose a lot of the flavor of the first half of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still a pretty entertaining movie, and the characters are entertaining the whole way through.
I agree.
Good cast.
And there's some iconic performances, too.
Yes, there are some good performances.
All
Great.
right. Kristen?
Basically what Jerry said. I mean, I would give it a solid great.
Great. All right. I would give it a great and a half.
Great and a half.
I'm giving it a great and a half based solely on, as we sit here and we nitpick it critically and stuff, I would probably, it's probably a great, probably be more suffice to say, but my experience in the theater and just reading about this movie and this movie as a whole, I had a almost epic experience. I feel like this would have been a fun one back in the day before our lives all got so busy if we could have all went to like a big midnight showing of this.
Dressed up as the Suicide Squad. Gotcha.
Would that not have been fun?
It would have been fun.
Even though as twisted and dark and maniacal as this film is, there's something fun about it. Maybe it appeals to the worst of human emotion, but there's something fun about it.
I feel like people, though, are really going overboard with how dark this movie is. This movie...
It's not even 89 Batman
dude,
dark.
This is not as dark as, like, a single episode of Game of Thrones. And people go on about... I mean, you know...
Our Batman Returns.
This is not as dark as Deadpool in terms of, like, inappropriateness and things. And people, like, love Deadpool and talk about, oh, this movie is, like, such a, you know, dark and twisted. I don't think it's nearly as a single episode of Game of Thrones or Deadpool or anything. And I don't know. I mean, maybe because it's PG-13 and those other ones are clearly labeled for adults. I could see taking a kid to this. You know, you're thinking like, oh, superhero movie.
Maybe like a 8 to 12 to 13 year, maybe 8 seem maybe like 10 or older.
I mean, I think I know 12-year-olds I think would eat this movie up.
Would my parents have let me see it at 9 or 10? Yeah, they probably would have.
Probably.
My parents let me watch like pretty much any horror movie or anything. I don't know if that says about how I turned out as a person.
Well, now we know why Brad says some of the things he does.
Yeah, that may be why. I mean, you watch The Fly at 6 years old and it terrifies you. RoboCop is a terrifying movie.
Oh my gosh.
I watched that at like 6 years old.
So I was not allowed to watch things like that as a kid. And I was
a better person.
Oh my gosh. I was at a neighbor's house. I didn't have the choice. I just wasn't allowed to watch them. We were at a neighbor's house. My parents were invited over to some neighbors for dinner. And I guess I walked downstairs and like my friend was watching RoboCop. And it was the scene where the Ed 209 is shooting up the boardroom. And it's so bloody. It's so violent. And I mean, now watching as an adult, like, you realize how satirical this movie is.
You don't get that
as a kid, this just freaked me out. And I mean, I, like, went back upstairs. I remember later on, they had, like, that cheese dip that has, like, the port wine cheese dip or whatever, you know, that you buy at the grocery store or whatever. And,
don't tell me you threw up.
No, my friend's like, look, this is the blood in it. And I'm like, I'm not eating any of this stuff, you know, but it freaked me out, so...
Yeah, so great for Jerry, great for Kristen. As for me, a great and a half. So it's been 50 episodes.
And Brad?
Yeah.
I can tell that you mean that.
Yeah. It's been 50.
Was that not your that was my favorite Joker line in the movie, when the guy kisses the Joker's ring and the Joker looks at him and goes, I can tell that you mean that. It was so good.
This Joker is getting short-sighted. He's not getting enough credit. He was method in this, but I love it. 50 episodes. Will we make it 50 more? It may take us 10 years, but I think we will make it 50 more.
50 more.
There's been so many different combinations of guests, so many different combinations of hosts, guest hosts, whatever. People from all around the internet. But it started right here with me and Jerry in this room reviewing Bullet to the Head, Sylvester Stallone, and Hansel and Gretel, Witch Hunters. That was the first 2 episodes. And it's been 50 episodes with a lot of in-between stuff, too. A lot of bonus stuff. And it's been fun. And I hope that we can keep it going for 50 more. If you listened, if you download, whatever. Whether you're my mom or some stranger on the internet or Jerry's dad, thank you for listening. So, Jerry Reed, where can people find more of you on the internet?
You can visit me at actionfigurebarbecue.com, where I serve up reviews hot and fresh daily. And, of course, I'm also on Facebook at Action Figure Barbecue.
All right. Kristen, what about you? I know you tweet up a storm during the day.
No, not really. I am on Twitter. I'm Erithalia, but I'm not really on there much.
She used to be a social media director, but then she had a kid.
Yeah.
So. As for me, you can find me always on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter, at Thereelbradbell, REEL Bradbell. Mainly the Epic Reviews just use the post podcast now. If I'm going to be posting anything other than the podcast, it's probably on Geeks Worldwide, and GWW.com. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for 50 episodes. Thank you to Jerry. Thank you to Kristen. Thank you to anybody that's ever been on this podcast. Gina. Andrew. Who else has
Evan?
been on here?
Is Evan on here?
Evan's been on here. My brother Dylan's been on here briefly. Oh, man.
We had a lot of people on the Iron Man 3 podcast.
Yeah, we did.
I remember that.
Tracy was there.
Tracy was on there.
Jan was on a few.
Jan was on a few, too.
Yeah.
Dusty was on a few.
She did Cat, too.
Let's see. You know, Amos from the Just Being Amos podcast has been on here with me. I've had
Agastocles was on Batman Superman.
Yeah, and I had Everett from Sweden, who's another, just had a baby, by the way. Still congratulations to them. Geeks Worldwide people on here, but so many people have taken away from their schedule to sit here and chit-chat with us about the stuff we love, so thank you. And once again, for the 50th time, from the Hollywood Foothills of North Carolina, we are out.
I'm dead serious. My favorite movie that we have reviewed on this podcast is Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunter. I can tell that you mean that.